Now, we have at times, including I think the last few years, had a government with bad policies. But we're a good people. What we have long needed is a government which reflects the values and the goodness of the American people. Now, our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which cooperates with big business to export our jobs and import cheap illegal labor, driving down wages for all American workers. In spite of soaring productivity, wages for American workers are now a third of what they were in the 1950s. A third. If worker pay had kept up with executive pay, the average worker would be making $1 million a year, and the minimum wage would be $171 an hour. I asked Congress to pass legislation indexing the minimum wage for inflation, placing tariffs on importation of goods manufactured by corporations who move jobs out of the country, and limiting the corporate deduction for executive compensation to 20 times the salary of their lowest paid worker. It's a free country. They can pay their executives whatever they want, but we don't have to give them a tax deduction for it. Meanwhile, I'm going to enforce the laws already passed and jail employers of illegal aliens. We have no beef with poor Mexicans trying to feed their families. Our beef is with the employers who exploit them as slave labor, driving down all of our wages. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which helps corporations despoil God's creation for profit. True conservatism demands that we preserve the land, the air, and the water for our grandchildren and their grandchildren for generations to come. Fiscal responsibility demands that polluters clean up their messes, not taxpayers. We will initiate bold programs in solar and wind energy with subsidies to make them not only competitive, but superior in the marketplace. At the same time, the Department of Energy will impose a ban on the construction of fossil fuel and nuclear power plants. My Secretary of Transportation, Ralph Nader, will request new CAFE standards doubling the gas mileage of cars and light trucks. There is no industrial free lunch, and there should be no corporate welfare. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which violates international law in its conflicts and denies its own citizens their constitutional rights. I have therefore ordered the release of all those being detained without charge, the closure of the prison at Guantanamo Bay. We'll find somewhere else for Cheney and Bush. And the end of the rendition program in which suspects are kidnapped and taken to secret foreign prisons to be tortured. I've pardoned a host of political prisoners, including Leonard Peltier,
Yes.
Mumia Abu Jamal,
Yes.
and Border Patrol agents Campion and
Yes.
Ramos. All contracts for mercenaries, including all contracts with Blackwater, are being canceled.
Yes.
This includes contracts with the DOD, the CIA, the State Department, and the Department of Homeland Security, which, by the way, is being abolished.
All right.
Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which launches unnecessary wars of aggression. Never mind what we've done to the Iraqi people. Over 4,000 of our finest are dead. The lives of over 30,000 of our injured soldiers will never be the same. Tens of thousands of our young men and women have suffered severe mental problems because of what they have seen and what they have done. Hundreds of thousands have been poisoned by depleted uranium and will live lives of pain and disability, and will father thousands of children with severe birth defects. Our military services are depleted and demoralized. The VA system is underfunded and overwhelmed. The National Guard and Reserves have been subjected to tour after tour, disrupting lives for even the lucky ones who return unscathed. Jobs have been lost, marriages have been destroyed, homes have been foreclosed, children have been estranged. And for what? We have alienated our friends and made new enemies. We have created thousands of new recruits for Osama bin Laden and further endangered the American people. I've asked the United Nations to send peacekeepers to Iraq to do a job we simply can't do as an occupying army. Whether or not they comply, within 3 months, we are going to support what's left of our troops by bringing them home while they're still alive. Our values and goodness are not reflected by creating thousands of disabled veterans in wars of aggression and then refusing to take proper care of them. The signature wound of the Iraq War is brain trauma, and yet the Bush administration slashed the funding for the Brain Trauma Center by 50%. The cost of caring for the disabled veterans for the Iraq War alone will be in the trillions of dollars, and yet it is a cost we must bear. The care of our soldiers wounded in action, racked by PTSD, and poisoned by depleted uranium is not a discretionary expenditure to be avoided by delay, denial, and bureaucratic red tape. It is a solemn obligation of this government, and it will be met. Our new Secretary for Veterans Affairs, Senator Max Cleland, is going to see to that. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a government which promotes a globalization which depresses living standards at home and allows corporations to destroy the quality of life in banana republics and client states all around the world. NAFTA has not only cost us millions of manufacturing jobs, but has also allowed Archer Daniels Midland to undercut the price of corn in Mexico, driving millions of Mexican family farmers off the land and across the border looking for work. In addition, the World Trade Organization, the IMF, and the World Bank have caused untold suffering around the world. If we can't reform them, we will abolish them. Our values and goodness are not reflected by a system in which all our personal income taxes go to pay interest on a staggering national debt created out of thin air. The Constitution gives